Okay, cool. So you guys ready to smash some grannies today? We're gonna start with structure again like last time. I want to do a little bit of these exercises because I want to make these sessions accessible to those of you that are like still struggling with it, and even for those of you that are a little bit new, and for the people who are watching like the recording, right? Try and like add something else other than just us backtesting in Software FX, right? Switch it up here and there. Next week we can go back to Software FX, and maybe even this session we might hop into it. I was just doing one earlier today, but I wanted to focus a little bit on TradingView because then we can, number one, the tools are better. Number two, you can kind of see things like sessions and stuff with like my session highlighter tools, so that's pretty useful, right? But let's start with structure here. What I wanted to show you guys, number one, is just swing structure on the 4 hour using like higher time frames to mark it out, right? So I pulled price back to, I believe, July of like last year. It's pretty bullish here, obviously, but let's play price forward a bit and let's get some like more minor structure sort of playing out here. So for 4 hour structure, basically what I'm going to do, and you can do this either on the daily or the 12 hour or the 8 hour. You kind of have to experiment with it a little bit depending on like what price is doing. Like if it's obviously really tight like this, you're gonna have to like probably drop to the 8 hour. But if it's moving enough, it's volatile enough, you can start marking it out on a higher time frame, like the 12 hour or even the daily, right? And all I'm gonna do is mark out essentially, actually, let's start with this like tight price action. We'll start with something more difficult, right? So I'm gonna go pull price back to this, and we'll do the 8 hour. So all I'm gonna do is mark out basically my candlestick structure with my marker tool, and then you'll see on the 4 hour how it ends up basically showing our swing structure, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna start off with this. We'll start with, and again, you can be like loose with it. You don't have to do every single like piece of like minor structure either. I don't want you guys to do that. Try to mark out the swing structure, right? That's the whole like purpose of it, right? So I'm gonna mark this out, then we're gonna play it forward a little bit on the 4 hour, and then I want you guys to try and guess where is price gonna go based on structure. And we can already like add in liquidity and stuff like that. We'll look at stuff to the left and see, are we tapping into something in the higher time frame? But same exercise as last time, I just wanted to show you guys this trick because I actually found it pretty useful. So even with this, right, I would say this is our major like swing high. So we want to wait till this breaks, though, because remember we're on a higher time frame. If we were to look at the 4 hour, this actually closes below it, right? So, and this is like a pretty like significant pullback too. So I wouldn't be against saying that this is like a break of this low, right? And we saw it on the 4 hour, right? You can always switch back and forth between time frames, but basically once we break, sorry, not this low, this is that minor low, right? Once we break this major low, that defines this high, or you could even say this high, right? And again, if we look on the 4 hour, you guys can see it's a lot clearer, right? So here is our 4 hour swing structure now, pretty much, right? So we're pretty much consolidating like any of these little like pullbacks. Like I'm not counting this as a pullback, right? Even though we broke like that structure level, that's all just a complex pullback within this leg, right? Until we break this high, right? And then same with this, right? Not counting that. And then if we play price forward on the 4 hour, where do you guys think price is going to go now based on what I marked out? And I'll mark the breaks of structure too if you guys like. Do it like this. To mid time frame. So that's our breaker structure up, right? Breaker structure down. You guys can use the annotate tool, by the way. I'll go back on the 4 hour for this. What do you guys think? And here's our current leg, by the way. That's our current high and our current low. Okay, so Sean, the sweep, you think that we're gonna go lower, right? I would actually, I'm gonna take that back. I'm gonna take this out as our high because really this is our swing structure, right? Again, if I go on like even the 12 hour, what do I see here? I'm not gonna count this single candle as a pullback, right? I'd be open to shorting if price pulls back to this level. So again, flip through the time frames. It really depends on like what price is doing. But yeah, I agree. I think price is pretty bearish. If we're looking at the daily, it's obviously bullish, but price looks like it's exhausted. We're tapping into something which is like a higher time frame sweep, right, to the left. Right, we swept this liquidity. There's our sweep. And then if I go in the 4 hour, what are we tapping into, right? Or what did we almost tap into? This inside bar, right? We didn't quite tap into it, but we'll mark it out, right? So maybe price isn't done. Maybe it wants to come up higher to this too, right? So let's see. 4 hour again. Let's play price forward and see what happens. Okay, we're failing to break the low. There we go. We closed below it. Okay, so you guys are right. It's good. So where's my next structural high? Let's go back to the 8 hour. Okay, Nishant pretty much got it. Good. So do you guys see why I'm using this trick? And here's the thing, you don't all have to use this either, right? The whole trick of like moving up a time frame or two, like whether it's going on the 12 hour, daily, 8 hour. But do you see how this simplifies it? If I just look at candlestick structure now, even on the daily, right? That's fine. I mean, you guys got it anyways. I think you guys know how to read structure, right? But for those of you who are new, I would suggest like using this trick. Yesterday, I tried looking for an indicator. I used to use like this pivot point indicator because I struggled with structure too. And honestly, like it worked, but the problem is it doesn't work in every environment, right? And again, there's going to be like some sort of discretion here and there between how everybody looks at it inevitably. So I think this is like the best workaround that I've found so far that we can kind of like play with, right? And again, if you feel like it's unnecessary and you can read 4 hour structure on your own, then that's great, right? So that's your current high and your current low. I mean, your low is still floating. We don't know if this is going to push down lower, so I'll put my marker tool here, but inevitably, again, we could like push down lower as well, right? So where do you guys think price is going to go now? Again, I can look to the left if you want me to. You just ask. Okay, so we think we're going to pull back into previous structure, which I agree with, right? We could tap into one of these zones. Yeah, absolutely. We can even start looking for entries a little bit too. I don't think I can go on the 1 minute. We'll go on the 15 minute if you guys want, because I also want to show how we can map 15-minute structure with 4 hour candlestick structure, if that makes sense. Okay, so it looks like the majority of you think we're going to tap into this demand, push up, maybe go into this zone, maybe not, right? We could also like react to this wick, right? Because remember, what did this wick do? Swept liquidity, right? So these are all valid zones. We'll mark them up. I want to show you guys my little hotkey that I need to. Using auto hotkey. So here is a 4 hour zone that we could tap into, right? I'm going to clear the screen because it's getting kind of messy. Where is it? And then you can also mark out this 4 hour wick here. So somebody's saying, or somebody's marking out a zone up here. So here's the problem with that zone. It's not to say that it can't come up to it, but we would obviously be against like 4 hour structure if price comes up to it, right? And then if price is coming up to that and we're breaking like these levels of supply, I pretty much expect that we're going to come into this major 4 hour zone, which is all the way to the left, right? This is a very significant like structural swing point for me, right? And it's sitting above this, which again, you can view this almost as liquidity, right? There's structural liquidity sitting here, right? So just be aware of that, and I'll mark that out too, so we're aware of it. And the structural liquidity that's sitting here too, right? So be aware of that, right? The other thing is, I don't know if I mentioned it, this is like almost mitigated. Okay, maybe it didn't come to the 50% of it or the wick. So yeah, there is a possibility it could come to this and use this as inducement, right? So we'll see what happens next, right? And I'll mark out the demands as well that you guys think we're going to react off of. So we could potentially play a pullback off of these two, right? Because remember, daily is still pretty bullish, I'd say. Right, okay, we're tapping into this demand. You guys remember this price action? You're cheating maybe a little bit. Even though it's from like July of 2020. There we go. Oh, you guys are pretty good. Look. So we tapped into this demand, right? We basically used all of this liquidity here that we built up, right? So in theory, you could, on an intraday perspective, look for like a pullback off of this zone. It's not the highest probability zone for me, like maybe if we look at like the lower time frames, yeah, maybe it sweeps like a little bit of liquidity here. That's pretty subtle, right? Unless you're looking for that. I would almost prefer this one. But again, because price is breaking these structural lows, right, we can expect a pullback. And then again, where do you guys see the liquidity that is built up before we're tapping into this wick? If you guys can mark it out. It's pretty obvious, but I want to try and engage you guys a little bit. Okay, good, perfect. So we'll mark that out too. So, based on that, we still have our low here. Where do you guys think price is going to go now? We're still within this structural leg, right? We didn't actually break a structural high or low yet. So where do you think we're going to go? Yeah, is price going to go up? Is it going to tap off of that wick? You know what? At this point, it could do either, honestly. I don't know for sure. Let's use the premium discount tool a little bit in our current leg and see. Like, where are we in premium discount? Okay, so these are both in premium, right? This one's swept liquidity. This could be used as liquidity for the higher zone, right? So keep that in mind. And what did this do? This also swept structural liquidity, right? So these are both like pretty good zones. The only problem with this one, I'd say, is that it initially failed to break structure, and this one was more so responsible for it. And it was also pretty corrective. So I think that this one's going to hold, but let's see. You guys kind of guessed 50-50 it looked like, right? I wish we could get like a voting function or something. That'd be pretty cool. But Jay, I can share my chart settings eventually. Okay, look, so we swept it, right? And taken that we're not even like really using like session confluences or timings at all, right? So we don't know if this was like spread hours or whatever. Actually, this looks like London Open. So that's pretty interesting. We completely blew through that. Yeah, where do you guys think we're going to go now? Remember, we're still within this structure. We're still bearish, right? What's the most logical thing that's going to happen? And what's the low probability thing that's going to happen too? I'll draw it out for you guys. Lower probability anyways. What could happen is we do this too, right? Or, I wouldn't even say this is like super low probability. We could come retrace all the way back up to this zone too, right? But it seems like the majority of you, I'd say like 70% think price is going to dump from here. So I agree with that. Let's see. And then we'll look at 15-minute structure too. I'm going to clear your drawings for a sec, guys. Okay, we're tapping in. There you go. Look at that reaction. Now, do you guys think we're going to break the low from here? Yes or no? Say it in the chat. Let's look at liquidity for a second. Are we going to continue to range within this? Or are we going to break the high, break the low? Yeah, do you guys see liquidity here? Liquidity to fuel the move down potentially? Right? We're just doing a pullback, it looks like, and I think that's the healthy thing to do, at least on the 4 hour, right? Does this say mitigated? Oh yeah, and there's also liquidity here too, right? But here's the thing. Actually, so whoever put this, I'm guessing you meant to say mitigated. Can't really make out your writing. I agree, this has been mitigated. Like, this is a lower high to me. It's not like it left equal highs here. So I don't necessarily think this will get taken out right away. It will in the future, for sure. There is structural liquidity, right? We can view it like this, right? You see these two structural points and the fact that we have, again, stop losses sitting above all of this, right? So, again, like, price could break down and then eventually come back up to this at a later date, right? Yeah, watch the course. This is like probably the first thing you guys are gonna like learn in like just the core content, the old content, right? And it's in refined as well, pretty sure. I guarantee it's in refined, right? So I'm gonna clear this out. Let's see what happens, and I'll mark out this liquidity too. Right? Got liquidity sitting below. Still building liquidity. Looks like price is pulling back, right? Within just this like range again. And it looks like we're tapping into something here potentially too, right? You guys see that? But still, like, remember, we're still within our structural range. So I want you guys to think of this from an intraday perspective. If we're gonna try and, you know, short or long, like, you could, in theory, you could long this too, right? There's definitely like an opportunity to long right here. We built this liquidity and we tapped into this 4 hour zone. It's super rangy, right? And although we are bearish, our expectation order flow is bearish, we're tapping into this demand zone, right? That's sitting below liquidity, and it's in discount of our current 4 hour leg, right? Same thing with shorts, right? Again, because we're in a range and it's with expectational order flow. It's with trend, pro trend, whatever you want to call it. We can look for shorts up in this zone, right? So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't draw liquidity this way, whoever drew that. Because remember, if you're thinking of it like stop losses, right? If you have stop losses here, aren't those getting swept by this? It is, right? So for me, when I draw trendline liquidity, the only way I'm ever going to draw it is like this or like this. Almost pointing inwards. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make sense to draw it like this at the top, or to draw it like this, right? Because this is all getting swept at every break of like these minor loads, right? So just keep that in mind when you're drawing your trendline liquidity. It's something that I see people do a lot, and honestly I did it before, but then I thought about it. We know it's stop losses, right? There's just stop losses sitting at every like high, right? There's more stop losses sitting at certain highs, right? Like equal highs like this, and major structural highs, right? But yeah, just keep that in mind. Let's see, I think we're honestly just gonna range here, and then maybe, let's see. A lot of you guys think it's gonna pull back lower and then push up. Could do that too. Let's see. Keep on playing price forward. We're still within the same structural leg on the 4 hour. Actually, you know what? This is a good opportunity to quickly show you guys 15-minute structure. So I'm going to quickly clear this. If you guys don't mind holding off from drawing for 2 seconds. So I'm going to apply the same principle that I applied to our, basically when I did like daily or 8 hour, 12 hour candlestick structure to find 4 hour swing structure. Okay. So basically all I'm going to do is mark out every like structural level on the 4 hour. Not every, but most of them. I'll show you guys how I'm going to do it. And I'll mark out like the highs and lows as well. I mixed this up again, but our light gray here is going to be our 15-minute. Okay, so let me delete this. Actually, if you guys want, you can even mark it out. Right? So mark out what you think 15-minute structure is on the 4 hour. Right? Can you guys do that? Start from here, from our current leg. You can use like this, yeah, you can use any tool, it doesn't matter. Okay, yeah. Try not to draw lines, just draw circles and stuff. And I'll mark them up. Okay, I agree. So, this is actually really cool to watch you guys do this. It's almost like an indicator. You guys are really good at this. Okay, cool. So you mapped out pretty much all of them. Stop drawing for a sec. Stop drawing for a sec. Okay, so I agree, this one, right? So we have our high. We have this low, right? Well, you know what, let's start from like back here even, right? I would say this is all pretty much, yeah, again, like we're using like 4 hour candlestick structure, so I'm gonna mark these like minor 4 hour pullbacks, which is really just 15-minute structure again, right? This is actually very similar to like current price action on EU, where we had like a wick pullback like this on the 4 hour, but then that really defines 15-minute structure, right? So I'm gonna mark everything like you guys did. So you have your high, your low, your lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, right? And then we break above this, right? And that defines this, right? This is definitely a pullback on the 15-minute, right? And then our higher high, right? So we're basically switching trend on the 15-minute now, right? From lower lows, lower highs to low, high, higher low, and higher high, right? So you guys agree with that, right? I'm not gonna mark out single candle pullbacks here. So I see like somebody here is trying to mark out even like this, right? These wicks. Remember, I'm trying to do 15-minute swing structure. So I want you guys to be aware of that as well, right? So clear this for a sec, and let's see. What's our current swing leg? Whoever was marking out in the red, where's our current swing leg? I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? Where's my high and where's my low? On the 15-minute. No, it's here, guys. Look, these two gray dots, right? So what am I waiting for? This low to break, right? So that low broke, right? And defined what as our next low? Yeah, this, right? And you could, if you want, you could say this is our new high that it defined or created. But honestly, I mean, I'll leave it at that, right? I'm not counting these pullbacks. They're too minor, right? It's a single candle. It's not really like relevant. So that's my 15-minute structure there, right? Now we're within this leg, right? And I'll show you guys how to mark out 15-minute minor structure as well. I use a different tool for it. But I wanted to show you guys how I do all of this, because I found like this is the most organized way, honestly, to date that I've found to mark this all out. Because if you're then gonna mark out like minor structure on the 15-minute with like a line, like I use like a red line tool, it's very obvious when you're like trying to find like 15-minute changes of character. And I'll mark out every minor break, even wicks and stuff, right? Because that's what a change of character is on the 15-minute. So I kind of combine those together. It is a little bit subjective, but there's nothing wrong with being a little bit like loose about it and having some discretion, so we can try and like interpret the market as best as we can, right? So there's our current 15-minute. Remember, we're on the 4-hour, right? There's our current 15-minute leg, right? We broke this low. So within this, right, we're pretty much stuck in a range still, right? Until we break this high, or this high, right? So I'll even count this. We'll say that this is our current sort of break of structure, because we did close above it, right, on the 4-hour. So that's our next 15-minute structure, right? And then where's our pullback? It's pretty obvious. It's right here, right? Until we break this high, right? So really, we're just like kind of ranging within it. I don't see a close out of it yet. So actually, I mean, we should pretty much remove this. We're just kind of wicking it, right? Kind of wicking the high, continuing to build equal highs up here, right? You guys can see that. That's very like clear equal highs. It's liquidity that's built up, right? So now I want to show you guys on the 15-minute. Let me quickly mark out like every structure break here too, or we can do it on the 15-minute. So I want you guys to consider all of the gray dots that we've marked out now, right? So you see all the gray dots. Do you see how we're not getting confused by these little pullbacks anymore? Because we've marked it out on 4-hour. It's essentially like consolidated structure into swing structure for us, without us having to try and do like all of the hard work of doing the interpretation of it. I actually use this trick between 4-hour and 15-minute. I don't necessarily do it for daily and or like using like the daily for 4-hour swing, or 8-hour or 12-hour for 4-hour swing, but I do this a lot, because look at all of this that we would have otherwise gotten tripped up on, right? And it's not to say that this isn't minor structure. It is, and we can interpret it as that, right? This is where we're going to start looking for our changes of character in a second. But do you guys get like this whole concept now? Like, look, literally just like the work is done for us. We don't have to go and like basically like comb through all of this, right? So I'm going to mark out all the structure breaks really quick, right? Yeah, it's not going to be 100% accurate, obviously, right? You have to use your judgment, and I would obviously review it on the 15-minute as well, right? It's also not going to like place them at the perfect area, so I usually move them around, right? You guys see how we're bearish on the 15-minute, and then let's look at our trend change, right? This is a pretty significant pullback, enough that, again, it was marked out on the 4-hour, right? Yeah, exactly. Thanks for your help there, Shane. So there's our high that broke, right? Now we're making higher highs. We're now bullish in this structure, right? And then pushing up, right? We're within this range, right? Until we break this low, right? And why is this our range too, right? Again, think from an intraday perspective, guys. Like, what's happening at all of these demand levels, right? We are getting reactions for the most part. Maybe not this one, but there's definitely like something you can play as a pullback here on an intraday perspective before price sort of hits its apex, or like parabola, and then continues down, right? Sweeps liquidity, right? So that's why we're not marking out all of these as structure, right? Doesn't make sense to do that. At least not for swing structure, mind you. So that's kind of how we're marking that out. And then let's see if we can get to, I guess, the next part here, right? So our current low. So again, this is swing structure. We're anticipating that price is going to pull back to one of these and then continue down. It does, right? Looks like it sweeps liquidity. It doesn't actually tap into like any super clear POI, right? You guys see that? This is probably like, what is this? Okay, this is an end of day push, it looks like, right? So if you were able to trade that as a short, you could, right? Based on this sweep of liquidity, if it's in your plan. It doesn't necessarily, again, tap into a zone or whatever that we can play. But I know some of you trade that way too. You trade liquidity sweeps. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, that's our 15-minute structure, swing structure, right? So we're still kind of within that until we break this high, right? So again, I'm going to mark it out. it gets kind of, I guess it gets kind of messy here because like, I think a lot of you would want to maybe mark this out as swing structure, right? And I guess you could. But again, we have another tool in our toolbox for marking out more minor structure, and that's using that red line that I'm going to show you guys in a second, right? But again, looking at swing structure, right? We break this high, right? I mean, we even break like these structural levels, right? And then we're now within this complex pullback, right? And again, if we use the P and D tool on this, right, you can see price pulled back into the 50% of it. And now on the 50-minute, for 50-minute swing structure, we're expecting that we're gonna break higher, right? But again, we gotta like look at all of this in context of the 4 hour as well, right? So I'm gonna pull back now. I think you guys did a great job of marking out all of this swing structure on the 15-minute. Now what I'm gonna do, and this is where we can start like looking at liquidity and maybe a little bit of entries, right? Again, we're just practicing, we're doing exercises here. But this is something that I do even now, right? I want you guys to be aware of that. It's not like I stopped like practicing this stuff. Nobody on the team stops practicing. We all practice all the time. We backtest pretty much every day, at least an hour a day. Most of us anyways. If not, we're doing hindsight markups like this, or we're doing exercises, right? Because we all want to stay sharp. And yeah, so let's mark out now our 15-minute minor structure. I'm going to pull price back. And for this, we can use the actual 15-minute, right? So I'm going to pull it back to, I'd say, let's just pull it back to here. So minor structure, where do you guys think our minor structure breaks are? And I'll just use my my tool here to start marking them out. But I want you guys to mark it out as well. And to try to interpret just 15-minute, it's basically candlestick structure I'm telling you guys to look for, right? Because we want to start looking for changes of character, right? Right, so Adam, good. Gabriel, good. I'm waiting for that high to break, right? Alright, I'm just going to keep clearing these. Let me move this a little bit closer to my tools. Yeah, so we're expecting this. I mean, you guys know what happens, right? So let's see. We kind of wick the high, right? But do you guys see how we got to change of character here? This is still a 15-minute change of character to me. We took the low, we took the high, and look, we pulled back into something that we can potentially long. A POI in discount of this leg, right? And we're also in discount of our overall larger leg too, right? So again, from an intraday perspective, right? Let me quickly just copy my session tool here so we can see what's happening. So I want some context here as well, right? Look where this is happening, guys. Oh, I think this is actually happening Frankfurt, or like just pre to London. So if anything, we could look for continuations here. I can't go down to the 1 minute, unfortunately, because this is a year back in price action. But again, let's stay on the 15-minute. Let's keep practicing this, right? And you guys are doing great. I'm actually like very impressed. You guys are like really getting it, right? So good job. Everybody give yourself a pat on the back so far. Right? You guys see this change of character, right? That's our first initial like bullish like momentum shift in this bearish leg, right? So let's see. Where are we expecting the next break, right? The thing is with minor structure though, you guys have to understand too. Price can kind of like go up and down all around as it seeks liquidity in the market, right? Yeah, we also have equals here. And look, so London is pretty interesting because we got basically, I think this is London anyways. Unless I have my time, I have my time set incorrectly. That's why. So this is like spread hours, looks like. So you guys wouldn't even be trading this, but there you go, it works anyways, right? So let's look at London now. Where do you guys think we're going to potentially tap into here based on like the structure that we built out, right? Do you think we're going to sweep this low maybe? Is this liquidity? Possibly, right? I'll mark this as liquidity as well. Yeah, I like that zone too. Let's see if it comes into it. And again, we're not looking for entries. We're just trying to anticipate what price potentially is going to do. And if we can do this with like somewhat decent accuracy, then we can look for like trades in and around those areas. So somebody marked this out. I think it was Shane. You marked this out as green. You're right. Price could just sweep these lows and not even come into this zone. So we can be aware of that too, right? If it's happening during London session, and we can maybe look to the left and see if we mitigate something on the lower time frame, and then look for our like 1 minute change of character within this leg or this price action, then potentially we can look for longs as well, right? So let's see. I'm going to clear everybody's drawings here again. I appreciate the initiative, but it's getting a little messy for me. 1 sec. So clear that. Alright, let's see if we tap into that low. Or if we just leave equals. Looks like we just left equals. Okay, so that can happen too, right? We didn't even sweep it. It looks like what happened instead is this. We just tapped into this wick. So this is really just a series of bullish mitigations, right? And look where this is happening. Frankfurt open, London open, right? You guys see that? And yeah, somebody marked out here, right? There's a pullback even, right? That's kind of digging a little bit deeper into it. Like, I would have to look at that on a lower time frame, but it's good that you can recognize that, again, price pushed up, broke whatever minor like high here, right? And then retested it, right, for a long. And then we built liquidity to target and obviously took that out too, right? And when we take out liquidity or structural points, what do we expect? A pullback, right? Price can't continue on forever. So what are we going to get next? Pullback, right? Although it was a pretty small one. We pulled back, right? So I'm going to keep marking out our structural points or our changes of character in a sense, right? So let's see. Let me clear the drawings again because it's kind of like throwing me off a little bit. Definitely this, right? Took out this high. Again, I'm doing minor structure here, guys, which is just candlestick structure on the 15-minute. Right, so we're obviously like bullish, right? But then again, we have to be aware of the fact that we're tapping potentially into a zone here. A pretty good zone at that. And this also almost, well, this like broke into previous like structure, right? If we look at this as a whole range in a sense. You guys see how we tap into that? But for me, I like this zone because look, what do? We swept liquidity again, right? So let's see if it even comes into it. I don't remember. Okay, it blows through it, right? Looks like it seeks something here. It uses this as liquidity, right? So that's fine. If we were in this, number one, we would be out of session, right? So what would protect us on this, right? We're out of session and price completely blew through it. Like we didn't even get a change of character or anything, right? If we're gonna trade counter to like 15-minute changes of character or like 15-minute substructure, not substructure, minor structure, we want to look for a change of character, right? Yeah, it's being recorded, Ty, don't worry. It's always recorded. So somebody's marking out all of these zones. Yeah, I agree with that, but we're also tapping into this, right? So let's see. I'm gonna move this. This is not relevant anymore. It's got pretty much got blown through, right? Yeah, so we think price is gonna fall. Again, most of you guys remember what happened. I have the memory of a goldfish, so I don't remember even with the markups. Let's see what happens. We get some minor reaction off of that. Again, like, not the strongest zone, right? So there you go. Momentum pretty much shifted from that. And then you guys remember what happens from here, right? It's pretty obvious. I've marked it out, right? I'm going to clear the drawings for a sec. Let's just see, right? We were obviously pretty bullish on this. So, and again, these zones didn't hold. If anything, these just were areas where we pulled back, right? Get minor pullbacks off of it. We're still pretty bullish. Momentum's still bullish. Like, we're not getting any breaks to the downside either, right? This was kind of our last, like, let's say, like, minor, very minor change of character. And then in New York, look, you got a continuation long, right? Kind of what we were talking about before. Or was that over here? Can't remember. But there's another one here, right? You guys see that? I'll mark out the wick. I'll zoom into the price action a bit because I'm forgetting that it's sometimes hard for you guys to see it, right? See how we swept liquidity and then retested this wick, right? Whether you look at this as liquidity or change of character, whatever, that is what a change of character is, right? Break the high, break the low, break the high, right? And in this case, I'd say this is our this is like substructure almost, right? So our substructure change of character. And it's a with trend change of character too, right? So sweep the low, take the high, retest the wick, and then it goes off right in session too, right at 9 a.m. That's a perfect like time, 9 a.m. Eastern, right? So okay, you guys are asking about flips too. Okay, you know what? I think this, in a way, it might be a flip, but it's hard to see it. Probably on the 5-minute. So let me see. I don't think this is necessarily a flip unless you guys see it as one. I guess technically, no, this is not really a flip. I wouldn't say that's a flip. You definitely get a flip here. Yeah, okay, so that's good. Whoever marked that out, was that Aiden? Good job, Aiden. Again, it's hard to read it because it's wicks. For some people, it's hard to read it. You can definitely see it though, because we're not playing off of a candle. But essentially on the 5 minute, and I'm not going to test it because I don't want to like lose our place in here and have to rewind back. On the 5 minute, this would be a supply zone, right? So I'll mark it as red. That price basically taps into. There's essentially a fight between sellers and buyers, right? Supply and demand, before price completely runs all of the sellers out of the market, right? So this one's a little weird because we failed to break this low, right? Which tells us it's a weak high, right? But typically what we're like looking at, right, when we look at this is, and like all a supply to demand or demand to supply flip is price not doing what we expected from like a structural perspective, right? So we were expecting this, right? Expecting to continue breaking those, right? You guys can see that. It's not the clearest thing, but we broke this low. Now we're expecting this to hold, right? Or maybe we're not. Maybe we're expecting a flip and we get one, right? What happens instead? Price reacts a little bit to this supply, and then buyers completely run the sellers out of the market, right? And then from there, what caused that break? What caused all the sellers to get run out of the market? Something within this leg, right? Either it's going to be something here or at the extreme, right? That's all a supply to demand flip zone is. Does that make sense? You guys get that concept? Because somebody was asking about it. So that's what a flip is, and you can use flips on any time frame, right? It's a commonly asked question, so I know like probably 90% of you guys understand what it is, but if you don't, there you go. Just delete that. Some people don't like the flip. Sometimes I don't like it either. Sometimes I like playing extremes, to be honest, especially on EU on the lower time frames. But there is a time and place for flips as well, right? When momentum is there, usually it's like within like a part of the session where, like, yeah, I think even this one, right? Again, I can't go down to the 5 minutes, so we can't investigate it. But if we're in like a high momentum session, like London or, you know, like New York, 9 a.m., whatever, Eastern, if price starts pushing and like showing real intent that it's going to go in one way or the other, it's breaking structure, and it leaves like flip zones behind, yeah, you might get a worse fill. It's a worse price to enter at. But if there was no like clear extreme to enter off of, then really like the flip is your only opportunity to take it. And I think EU did this today. We can kind of look at it real quick. I want to show you guys just an example of it. I think it did it today. I didn't trade New York today, but it did it today during London. So let me just cut price back to this and I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. Right? Price didn't come to the extreme of this. We'll go in the 1 minute. But it did create a flip zone, right? So it sweeps these highs, right? It sweeps all of these highs, right? Actually kind of made like equal highs for later in New York. If you guys traded New York, you know what happened. It gets swept, right? Price pushes down. And this is in and around, this is like 50 minutes, 50 minutes into London, right? So London open was over here. We obviously got a lot of momentum, right? It is all pretty much just setting up liquidity, and then price changes character on the 1 minute, and I'll mark them out. Right? I'll do it with my my blue line because that's my lower time frame change of character that I'm usually looking for, right? And typically what you're gonna find is your change of character usually lines up with your flip zone, right? So here's our demand zone that we're expecting to hold and make higher highs. It doesn't. Instead, price pulls back, creates a little doji, right? This is our interaction between basically buyers and sellers. We run the buyers out of the market, right? Sellers take control. They take this low, right? Sorry, let me just make this a little cleaner. And then what happens, right? Price taps in, then it just runs. I think it only runs to the 5 bar though. Or maybe lower, I can't remember. But there you go, there's an entry, right? And even if we tighten this up a bit, like I put like a 2 pip stop. I didn't take this, to be fair. I was kind of looking at it. I hesitated, didn't take it. There you go, right? Nice sort of entry there. And I think you even get like this is kind of pushing it, but this would also technically be a flip zone. Not the highest probability one because it's so low down in the leg. I wouldn't necessarily take this, but it's the same principle, right? See how this is a demand zone here? You can even play these even though they're like further out. I think if we go on the 5 minute, that is... okay, no, it's nothing. Nothing on the 5 minute. You guys see how we're just running buyers out of the market here? You obviously break this low, right? I'll mark it out for you guys so it's clear again, right? Take this low out, right? And we technically sweep that high, right? So that tells me like this is a pretty nice area. If we're looking at this as sort of like minor 1 minute liquidity. And I apologize for like the super messy chart. Let me turn off like sessions for a sec because this is kind of crazy. There we go. It's a little bit cleaner, right? This, once we take all of the buyers out of the market, we leave this sort of like extreme, right? And that's responsible for, again, breaking this structural low, right? And again, running the buyers out of the market. So I can then mark out this, right, as our potential entry. Again, this is pretty far down in the leg, though I think it's above the equilibrium. If we mark out equilibrium, yeah, it'd actually be safe, right? But for a trade like this, I would not look to take more than 5R on this, right? And I don't even think it runs 5R. It runs like, oh no, it does. It just runs 5R on that, so it's not bad. Look at that. Right? So you guys understand that concept? Hopefully, like I know I kind of went on a tangent there. I want to go back to structure and keep practicing that with you guys, but that's good. Joe, you took that trade? Nice. Good stuff, man. I hope you took this one too, because this is really like the ideal entry. This was like clear as day, right? For me, I just didn't take it. I was kind of tired, right? You guys got to factor in like the psychological and like, I would say like fatigue is a big aspect of it too. If you're like me, trading in Eastern time zone, right? It gets kind of crazy unless you get used to it. But I'm now expecting, obviously we know that this is going to go, you want to go to the 15 minute on the previous one? Yeah, let's take a look at it, sure. Here again, it's pretty messy, right? But same thing, we got to change the character even on the 15 minute. I'll mark it out with the red tool. What I consider a change of character, despite the fact that we left equal highs, right? I think equal highs kind of like turned me off of the trade too, because the whole like play that I was looking for on EU, like the past couple days is like I'm expecting we're going to sweep these highs, and eventually it happened in New York, and I was sleeping for it. So it did do it. It just I was hoping it was going to happen during London, but London was just the setup, right? You guys see the liquidity it built up here. But here is my change of character, right? Again, we're just going to use wicks. There's a 15-minute change of character right there. Take the high, take the low, and then essentially like retests it, right? You could even go as far, well, I would say this wick is better, right? This is why you have to flip through multiple time frames too, right? So, because the thing is, if we're looking at just like this 15-minute wick, really the only valid one would be this one, right? But because of the fact that we're in a range, right? Price is showing like bearish intent. That original short up here, like I think this is a good quality, like high probability trade, especially because it's swept like Asia liquidity, basically internal range liquidity here, right? So you guys see how it swept these structural highs here, and all of the liquidity that was sitting here too. All right, I have it marked out. Right, swept that, and then it went, right? And then you get your continuation for 5R, but I wouldn't hold it past that, right? Because again, the fact that we left these equal highs, but we swept it, we tapped into this 15-minute zone I had marked out, right? That's sitting in a 4-hour above, and then what happens? We sell off, right? And we even get our retest. We also get a 15-minute change of character here, right? Wasn't really expecting to do a review of like today, but why not, right? Again, I want to show the examples to you guys. So, yeah, this is today, Jed. But yeah, did any of you guys catch this short? I think I saw some of you guys did on Instagram or whatever. Like Sam was reposting it. This is a like fantastic short if you caught it. Right at 8:30, right in session too. Nice, Andre. I like to hear that, man. This guy caught it. Was it news? I wasn't even aware of that, to be honest. Again, I didn't trade the session, so I don't know. But that's good that you guys caught it. So let's go back to structure here, right? There we go. We took out this minor structure low, right? We took this high, took this low. So inevitably, we can look for shorts in this minor leg, right? Does that make sense? And look, what do? We tap the extreme, right? Again, look, here's another example of a flip zone on the 15-minute. It's not the clearest, but you guys see this? We failed here, right? We failed to continue higher, right? Failed to really break up. We just wicked it. It gets taken out. All the buyers get taken out of the market. And what gets left behind? What's the demand that's, or sorry, the supply that's responsible for breaking the previous demand zone, right? The red demand zone. This, right? We retest it and we go, right? So there's absolutely an entry here. And of course it's within session as well, right? This is right at, make sure I have the timing right, 4:45. So what is that? Like 9:45 your time, 10:45 your time, right? Pretty sure it's 9:45. So, okay, Roland is asking if I can show. I'll jump back to that in a bit, but let's keep practicing this, guys. Let's go back to practicing our like substructure, right? Because this is another like thing that I want you guys to practice as well, right? We've pretty much gone through basically 3 layers of how to interpret structure. We have 4-hour swing structure, either using 12 or 8-hour or daily candlestick structure, right? Do what makes sense to you. You experiment with it, right? And then 4 hours using 4-hour to mark out our 15-minute swing structure. Again, flip through both time frames if you need to, right? And then now we're looking at 15-minute candlestick structure in a sense, and even like wick breaks and stuff, right? So almost like we're using a combination of market mapping structure, I think 1 and 3, right? Where we're looking at wick breaks, where we're looking for our changes of character, and then we're also looking at like candle closures, right? Which again, just helps us define like what very minor 15-minute structure is doing, so we can get an idea, again, on an intraday perspective, as long as we're keeping aware of like liquidity and zones that are like potentially high probability that we're going to tap into. That's where we can look for our trade locations, right? And we can start refining down to the lower time frame and looking for, you know, shorts in this case, right? So you guys
Rob, Rob, can I just ask?
So let's continue with this. You guys know what happens with it, but let's keep on marking out our breaks, right? So I'm gonna keep on playing price forward. I'm actually gonna like let price develop a bit, and I want you guys to mark out basically 15-minute changes of character and where you would try to like trade. Like where's your trade location, right? So let's do these 2 full days. I want you guys to use your annotation tools on this. I won't move the screen. Start marking them out from here. I'll do the first one.
Rob.
Alright, we're continuing to break these lows, right? Okay, Jad, yeah. I agree with that one.
You can't hear us?
Well, let's go from here, guys. Everybody mark it out. Use your annotation tools.
Oh shit.
Yeah, you're marking that as a zone potentially, right? So this, I would say, is all pretty much.
Rob.
We don't really want to mark this out, right? Because this is all just kind of substructure, right? And it's not within session. Like this is like spread hours too, right? In Asia, so we don't really want to play that. But who marked this out in the red? Good, because we took a high, right? High, nice, man. So that's pretty relevant, right? We're taking a major, like, I wouldn't say it's major, but it's significant, right? And we sweep liquidity here, right? So that tells me that, I don't think it taps into this, it just taps into the previous structure, right? That tells me that we're getting, like, again, a change of character, right? Somebody else marked out this. You could either mark out like this low or this one, right? And then we get a pullback. We don't really pull back all the way to this right away, right? But we essentially get a change of character up here, right? I'm gonna clear it again, and let's keep on marking them out, right? So we even take this low, right? Again, I'm looking for low and high breaks, whether it's like wicks or whatever, right? Again, it can be a little bit subjective. We're just looking for essentially like continuations in a way, at least for this, because this is like pretty bearish price action, right? We get our initial change of character, right? Where we're kind of like pushing up, then we break this low, and then we start continuing to break lows, right? Even this minor low, right? No, I can't hear you guys. Wait, you guys talking this whole time?
Someone wants
Can you hear us, Rob?
Now I can. I had my sound muted this entire time, guys.
Hey,
My
yo,
bad.
Donut. Someone tried to ask you a question. You just completely ignored him. But
I'm sorry about that. I didn't realize I was muted. All right, what's the question?
I was gonna ask. It's just like structure related. So,
Yeah.
like over here.
Yeah, sure. Let's pull back to it. Right
So,
here?
like just real quick,
Sure.
is this like the whole leg, or would you say the 15-minute structure is like this?
So are you talking about swing structure, or are you talking about minor structure?
Swing.
Structure? Well, what did we mark out before, right? Oh, we didn't actually mark it out. So let's use the 4-hour trick again. I'm gonna pull price back to it. I'll do it with you, okay? So where was it here? So I'll pull back all the way to here, and I'll actually delete these so that we can like practice it, okay? So 4-hour. Again, just using candlestick structure. Let me turn off the session tool because it's pretty ugly. And I apologize for anybody I cut off, by the way. I didn't realize I had my sound muted. I guess I forgot to unmute it when I came back initially, so it's all good. Okay, so let's see. From a 4-hour perspective, I would say, remember 4-hour candlestick structure. I'll use the gray tool, right? We have this low, this high. This low gets taken, defines this high, right? So really, we're kind of within this leg, this bearish, like 15-minute swing leg, right? Price pushes up. This is all pretty much just one leg for me until we break above, right? So I would say we didn't quite close above it, but this is enough to tell me that obviously like this is a break above, right? And then that defines then either this is our low or this is our low, right? So really like this is my 15-minute swing structure. And if we look at it on the 15-minute, right? Again, you have to think of it this way. Price can pull back to any one of these zones and potentially respect it and continue higher, right? So that's why we're looking at like these gray dots as our 15-minute swing structure. Does that make sense? Now with this, obviously like, yeah, there are a lot of like minor structure breaks in between, but that's why I use like this red line to mark out my minor structure, right? So you're not wrong in thinking that structure is like bullish in this sense, right? We're breaking these highs, and I'll mark it out with, I'll do a different color. We'll do like green or something, right? Just to make it a little bit easier to differentiate it. I'll do like lime green. Can you guys see this okay? It's probably not bright enough. Do it like that. But yeah, there's a reason I look at like structure from like multiple perspectives, right? Swing and this type of structure as well, right? I'm not going to count this because that's like too minor of a pullback. But you can see where I marked out all of my like basically minor structure breaks, right? So from an intraday perspective, like if price does pull back into any of these zones and we're like in session, like say this pulls back into this zone in London, like yeah, I would look to long it because it broke this minor structure, right? And we're with trend. The only thing that would maybe turn me off of it is the fact that like we're in premium of swing structure, right? So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And until we break this low or this high, right, we just wick it here, then we can say that we're then shifting, right? We're getting our change of character bearish, right? And I'll mark it out as well. Right? We take the high, right? We wick the high, and then we wick this low, right? So even that is a change of character there. Oh, I guess I marked that out before, but I deleted it. And then you get your retest, and then price pushes off of it, right? So that's why I'm marking out all of these little red lines. That makes sense. Make sense?
Yeah.
So yeah, you can trend substructure, just be aware of 15-minute structure, right? It's the same as you like using being aware of 4-hour structure and like expectational order flow and zones and like high to mid time frame or mid to high time frame liquidity. You have to be aware of all of it, right? Like you can't just trade 15-minute trends. Like you could, but you're gonna end up taking a lot of losses because you're not aware of like the higher time frame context. I'm answering somebody in the chat, by the way. I'm not necessarily addressing whoever's asking the question here, but yeah, hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Yeah, no worries. And it's a good question too. I'm glad you asked it because I know like a lot of people struggle with that and have that question, right? Even I do sometimes, which is why like I spent so much time yesterday trying to develop like kind of a curriculum for today's backtesting session because I want you guys to be able to see it with something that's a little bit more mechanical, right? Again, inevitably there is like maybe like 10-20% discretion in this, depending on like if you're gonna use 4 hour or like, oh no, my thing froze here. There we go. Depending on like, you know, what you use for the higher time frame to, you know, define 4 hour swing structure, for example, right? There's gonna be discretion in that, but I think I simplified it enough, or like gave you guys enough tools to kind of play with it, right? So let's keep on playing price forward. Again, let's practice this a little bit more, and then if you guys want, we can push to like more recent price action. I'll actually give you guys the option. We can either look at more recent price action and back test it in TradingView, like kind of doing hindsight testing, try to make it interactive, or we can do software FX because I have a session loaded up here that we can kind of play. I think this is me and Aaron were doing this at what is this, like 2020 or something. We were just testing it in like old price action again, June, right? So I think Dan was doing that too. Dan, I don't know if you're here, but he was doing like 2003 price action the other day, which is kind of funny, and it was working pretty well for him. So yeah, software FX is ugly, but you know the management tools are really nice, right? So let's keep on marking out. Remember, we have our swing structure here that we define here with the gray lines. So again, I want you guys to mark out. Try to be neat with it. Just use a line, right? Don't mark out like, don't circle stuff or anything. Mark out changes of character here in this price action now. Show me where you see changes of character. And I'll turn the sessions tool back on so we can see where it's happening, right? Jad, come on, man. I said please use a line like I'm using here, right? I'm gonna clear it, let you guys do it again. Right, so there's one there for sure. But show me a take of the high, take of the low. That's what I'm most interested in, right? There's one here. I took the low, took this high, right? And then we pull back into something in this leg, right? Looks like it was this. Pretty minor, but definitely like some sort of, oh, this is spread hours again. Or this is Asia. So, okay, maybe you wouldn't take that. But take the low, right? Take the high. Again, we're looking at 15-minute like breaks, essentially. You could even look at it as this. I'm going to quickly clear this and show you guys what I'm looking at here, because we do get a retest in New York, right? This is a really like volatile day, obviously, because we get a huge sell-off in London, essentially, right? And we don't even know if there's really like an entry here. Get kind of a continuation, and then basically a reversal off of like New York at the end of the day, right? So I'll show you guys that in a second. Yeah, Aaron, that's not bad for sure. We built liquidity, right? We didn't quite tap into that, but I'll mark that out because that's a pretty interesting zone. It's a high probability zone, whether it taps into it or not. I like that, just because of the fact that there's liquidity sitting above it, right? So let me clear this again and show you what I'm talking about for this one. Esteban, which one? Is there a demand zone? Yeah, from this. Are you talking about this? Or are you talking about something else? I'm just looking at this as a basically a 15-minute change of character as well. I'll zoom into it, right? This one's really weird because it's a wick, right? It's not super obvious, like we're not closing above. But do you guys see how this is a 15-minute change of character as well? We're expecting, right? We're expecting that we're going to continue breaking lows. We fail to break this low, right? And instead, like we wick it, right? Again, not the clearest thing. I'm looking just at this price action from here to here, essentially, right? So ignore everything to the right. I'll actually cut price so you guys can see what I'm talking about, right? So I'll draw a little diagram beside it so you guys understand, because this is, again, another place that you can look for almost a reversal, right? And then we would also check to the left to see if we're tapping into something. But if we're just looking for changes of character, right, we take this low, right? We take all this liquidity. We take this high, right? We're expecting that price, right, from this wick is going to continue lower, kind of does, right? And then we're expecting that it's going to respect this. It doesn't. It wicks it instead, right? Like this. And then we're expecting that this is going to get taken out. It doesn't. Instead, it respects it, right? So in a way, I wouldn't say this is really a flip zone, but it's just a change of character more than anything, right? Actually, it is a flip zone because this is our supply, right? So if this is our supply and we're running it out of the market, right? What's responsible for running out of the market? This demand that I marked out, which would be this wick, right? So knowing that, let's watch price play out, right? Taps into this wick, right? And again, on a lower time frame, you'll probably see this as like a really clear like break or like sweep here, right, of liquidity, probably on like a 1 or 5 minute. Right? Price taps into our zone. We look for like either a seconds or 1 minute change of character here, or we can try to take the risk entry if you're into that, and then price pretty much blows through it. And this is a nice like session timing too, because this is right at the end of the day, right before London close, right? So typically we see like, not all the time, but like sometimes you'll see like a push, right? And this happens to be one of those like really nice examples of it, right? Do I look for a momentum change? Oh no, I hit the 1 minute. Okay, that sucks. I guess we can switch to TradingView now and actually like practice this. Let me clear everything. We'll start with structure again. We'll start looking for entries and stuff. One sec. So somebody's asking, do I look for a momentum change on the change of character? All a change of character is a momentum shift, essentially. It's just a different name for it. Unless you're talking about something else. Are you talking about on the lower time frame, Lewis? You can talk, by the way, if you have a mic. Momentum shift? Yeah, like, again, looking for the same thing. Basically what I'm doing, I'll draw like a diagram for you, right? So say we have like 15 minute, similar to what we had before, right? So like, this would be kind of my initial change of character, even this, right? And then I would mark out this, because this would be a flip zone, right? And potentially even like, let's say this extreme could hold too, right? You don't know what's going to happen. We play the reaction to this, right? And if price comes down to this, we can also play that on the lower time frame. But the minute that price comes into this 15-minute zone that we have marked out, which is like a high probability zone, relatively high probability. I'd say they're both like good probability because this one also sweeps liquidity, right? And then pushes up, right? Breaks significant structure. Within this, I'm going to look for that like 1 minute or seconds time frame change of character, right? Or momentum shift, which is basically like, we obviously see that price is bearish coming into it, right? Breaking lows, right? Sweeping liquidity. When I start seeing this, right? This shift in momentum, us starting to break these supply zones, right? If you look at these as supply zones, then I can start looking either for, you know, flip zones if there's like pullbacks in that, right? Or we can try to play the extreme, right? So that's pretty much all I'm looking for. And again, remember, like any of these flip zones could also be used as inducement to fulfill our extreme. So just be aware of that too, right? So yeah, let's look at price action now. I'll pull back. We'll do August, I guess, because it's pretty challenging. And again, we'll do like, let me pull back to a place that we can actually go back to the 1 minute. So I think we can do like July 26th. Let's see. Okay, doesn't look like we can do 15 second. That's fine. We'll stick to 1 minute for this one. For those of you that don't have 15 second, right? So I'm gonna pull it back to, yeah, let's see, July 26th or whatever. Okay, so this is kind of good practice because look how like messy this structure is, even on the 4 hour, right? I'm gonna start with 8 hours. So this is kind of where I was thinking like, okay, this is where I would apply like maybe like one of the lower like time frames, like the 8 hour versus using the daily for marking out swing structure. But let's just mark it out. I'll turn off the sessions thing because it's pretty distracting. I'm gonna mark out our major structure, and then we'll go all the way down to 50 minute. We're gonna do the exact same thing, and then we can start looking for like entries, right? Because now we have the 1 minute to play with as well. But we know August obviously was like pretty like rangy price action, but there were opportunities like nonetheless, right? Despite the fact there wasn't a lot of volatility in the market. So let's start with 4 hour. So for this one, 4 hour is going to be gray, okay? And then I'll do blue as our 15-minute swing structure. And then we'll just use the line tool again for 15-minute like changes of character. And we'll start looking for entries. So based on what you guys see here, I'm gonna just quickly check the daily. Like, you can't use daily for 4 hour swing on this, right? It's just too many wicks. So this is where, again, I drop down to like 8 hour, right? So can you guys mark out or circle the swing highs for the 4 hour? Where do you guys see it? Okay, good. Good. You guys got it. That's exactly what I was gonna do. So I'm gonna clear your drawings. And then we're going to look at this here, because this is really challenging too, right? We might actually have to go down to the 4 hour to do it. So stop drawing for a second. Let me draw these out, right? So we got our high, our low. Obviously, like, we're breaking this swing structure low as well, right? And this is on the 8 hour. Again, we're interpreting this 8 hour structure essentially as our 4 hour swing, right? Price pulls down. And then we're within this major leg, right? Until we break in and around here, right? Which then defines this as our next lower high, right? Because we're essentially doing this. So you guys get that? And there's our break. So now we're within this, right? So pretty much I would say that we can consolidate all of this, right? As kind of one leg. Even though it is very messy. Let's look at it on the 4 hour now, right? Kind of get to see like the fruit of our labor, marking out what structure is on a higher time frame, right? So yeah, I wouldn't consider this as a pullback, right? This is our entire leg, and you can see how this actually like makes sense and works, right? If we were to mark out our, and this is again just 15-minute structure, right? If we were to mark out our 4 hour structure like this and consider this a pullback, we're gonna try to short here, aren't we? Right? So it doesn't make sense. What does price do instead? Pulls back to this extreme. So it's better that we look at this entire thing as a leg. Right? And that's the reason we've kind of like switched up the way we look at swing structure, in a sense. And it's the same thing that like Sam and El have taught in like numerous Zooms that they've done, right? We're looking at swing structure like that, right? Now for this, right, we obviously break below this, right? I would still consider this my swing high, right? Again, looking at the 8 hour, we're consolidating this entire thing into one leg, right? We're not looking at every like, break. Even if we look at this as our major low and our break, I'm not calling this my high, right? It is maybe on the 15-minute, but again, what can price do? It can use this as inducement, and it does, right? Like, this is liquidity. And then obviously pulls back into this major 4 hour here, right? Sorry about that, my dog's kind of barking. 1 second. I'm gonna turn on. Yeah, what's the dog doing? I don't know. Give me 1 second, guys. Alright, sorry about that. Just the mailman. Got the dog in here now. Why is Andrew saying it's a cat? It's not a cat. It's obviously a dog. Okay, so let's go back to this. So do you guys understand this? Like, this is again a good example because we have a pretty like challenging bit of price action, right? And it's hard to interpret, like even for me, right? On the 4 hour, like just looking at this is like a mess, right? So do you guys get that? Good. I'm glad you get it rolling. Glad you guys get it. Clear all drawings again, right? Let price play forward a bit. I'll go into like August here a little bit. I want to see if we can get another like structural leg here. Right, so now we break this high. This was just really a minor like pullback, if anything. Yeah, this PA sucked. I didn't like it either, to be honest, right? But it's good for us to practice it, right? Because if price action becomes like this again, like maybe next year in August, at least we're prepared for it, right? So based on this structural leg, we get this break, right? Let me go back to the 8 hour again. We're going to use that trick, right? Break. Get this break up here. Right? And then that kind of defines this pretty much as our low. You can choose any one of these, honestly. Price could come back down to this, but like I think if it does, after pushing this high up and breaking structure that aggressively, like you're pretty much kind of shifting momentum, right? So I'm gonna say it's this low because we got a pretty like significant pullback, right? Remember, we're on the 8 hours, so we can mark out like wicks or like very minor pullbacks like that, right? Let's even look at it on the 12 hour. Again, 12 hour it's a wick, so really again 8 hour makes most sense to look at. And then again, if we drop now to the 4 hour, that makes perfect sense, right? So our current high is floating. Let's see if it can pull back a little bit. Good. So this is now, I would say, our defined like high, right? So if we break this, like this is enough of a pullback on the 8 hour even, that if we break this high, we can call this our new low that's being defined, right? Or our higher low in a sense. So does that make sense? Obviously price is really bullish now. So let's now look at 15-minute structure again, okay? We're not going to go on 15 for it. I know I went on 15. But now we're going to look at 4 hour to define our 15-minute swing structure. If it lets me. I'm going to turn off this talk toggle. Okay, so now we're on the 4 hour. And now we can use this to look at our 15-minute swing structure, right? So same thing. I'm going to use the blue marker, right? Are you guys finding this repetitive at all? I kind of want it to be because I'm trying to like drive the point home that you can look at structure this way, right? Let's look at it from here, right? So we have this high, right? This low, right? This is our previous like 15-minute swing. I wouldn't necessarily say that this is, but I guess we could say, because remember we're on the 4 hour, right? We could define this as a pullback. Let's like look at it on the 15-minute and actually check it, right? That's enough of a pullback, I'd say, right? But the other way you can look at it again is just like this whole thing as a leg, right? As a bullish leg until we break this low, right? But whatever, let's mark it out that way. Again, we're on the 4 hour, we're using candlestick structure. So we break this low, right? So I'd say it's kind of like that, right? And this is where price action gets honestly like really like messy, but I would say that this is our next high on the 15. That's our low, right? I'm not going to count this wick because we don't actually like close above it. So that's our current leg, right? Until we break this low. And that would, I would say that kind of defines this as our next 15-minute high, right? Again, I'm not counting this really until it breaks here, and it does, right? Well, it kind of fails to break on the 4 hour. But that's enough to tell me that this is like 15-minute swing structure again, right? This is pretty challenging price action. I think you guys like know, right? If you were trying to mark this out as 4 hour using like the other method, like good luck, right? So yeah, that, again, we just wick this, so I wouldn't really consider it like a break. But again, on the 15-minute, we can almost consider that a break, right? I'm just trying to think of it as like 15-minute swing structure again. We pull back, let's see, we get a pretty clear like closure, right? So that's our 15-minute swing leg, right? So is that making sense to you guys? It's kind of like this in a sense. Draw it out so we can actually visualize it a little bit. Right? Pretty minor break. It really was just a sweep, but then look, price obviously like is bullish from there, right? And we define our next, I would say like higher high or higher low rather, right?
Yeah, it's messy price action.
It's
like
pretty messy though. It's even challenging. I mean, you can see I'm kind of struggling to interpret
Yeah.
it, right?
yeah, it's hard.
It's not
You
the
don't
easiest
want to
thing.
be trading it, like, would you?
Yeah. But I mean, here's where like things start to look up, right? You break this high, exactly. Gabber, good stuff, right? Defines this low, and again, within this leg, right, or even this leg, you can look at this kind of thing, right, or this pullback, right? Because now we're bullish. Sorry, so it should be like this high here. This is really kind of like the best thing that we can look at in this price action. And I think this was, again, like, this must have been some sort of news from what I remember, right? Either NFP or like CPI or something, right? Jad, I'm glad that you're getting something out of this, because that was like my whole intention of this whole like session, was to give you guys a little bit more of a better framework for marking out structure, right? Because again, I feel like it's so subjective when we're just looking at the 15-minute, right? Or the 4 hour, and trying to mark out like swing structure using that, right? It's just not like the easiest thing in the world. But this is going to keep you out of like, again, thinking like all these minor structure breaks are anything but minor structure, right? When we should be like paying attention to the it's almost like the relative like higher time frame intention, right? And structure. That's what we're trying to play. Right? And so you can see like price within this bullish leg pulls back multiple times. You know, after, well, really after we define this, it pulls back once, right? And you get kind of a long. We break structure again, up, right? So let's go back to the 4 hour. Let's keep mapping it out a little bit, and then we can start looking for some sort of an entry. I guess we could even look for one here if you guys want to look at it, but I don't trade news, and I don't really like practicing this stuff because like I'm not going to trade it anyways, right? I'd rather be like realistic about it. For this, you can see that we tap into this 4 hour zone here, so this really becomes like liquidity in a sense. A lot of this here, right? We build equal highs, we tap into it, right? But remember, we're still pretty bullish on 15-minute for swing structure, right? But again, looking at 4 hour, if we go up to the 8 hour for a second, we can see that actually we're bullish on this too, right? But this really boils down to being aware of like higher time frame POIs and like liquidity that's sitting at certain levels, right? So I would expect that you guys would be like aware and would mark out zones like this, right? It's an inside bar, it breaks structure here, right? Sorry, we're on the 8 hour, but let me go to the 4 hour, right? It's clear here. See how we break this low, right? And we sweep like very minor liquidity here. I'll mark it out. So we sweep liquidity. This tells me this is like a pretty like good zone and that it's potentially gonna hold, right? And then you pair that with the fact that even though it's against higher time frame and mid time frame, 15-minute swing structure, because we have inducement here, we have liquidity, and it takes that liquidity, respects it, we can look for potentially trades in this area. So I'll actually pull price back and let's actually investigate this, because even though it's counter trend, this is like a nice zone to play off of, right? Everything's pretty much efficient. It's been mitigated already from here to here, right? So do you guys see why like potentially shorting off of this POI makes sense? So long as we get like a 15-minute change of character. You guys understand, right? I think we even get a retest too, so let's investigate it. And this is pretty much how I do like my daily review, and like I'll backtest this way too a lot, right? It's not just backtesting in software effects. It's not the only thing that we do, right? You can see prices pulling back into it. Let's turn on sessions so we can actually see like where it's happening, right? So in this case, it was London. This one's interesting because London actually pushes up into our POI, right? And then where do you guys see our change of character on the 15-minute? Mark it with red or whatever. Use a red line to mark out your change of character. Okay, but where's the initial like take of the high? Where do you guys see the take of the high? Okay. Okay, there we go. Dan, you marked out exactly what I was thinking. I think it's because Dan and I trade pretty similarly. You see things in a similar way. So I was looking at, and you know what, you guys aren't wrong either, because like you can interpret it the way you've marked it out as well. I'll show you the two ways that I would look at it. So let me just clear everybody's drawings. Don't draw for a sec. So what Dan marked out and what I agree with is the take of this high, right? And the take of this low, right? That tells me that's like my change of character. This is also correct, but then you're now looking a little bit at more major like structure. It's still minor structure, don't get me wrong, but again, I'm looking at like wick breaks and stuff, right? Somebody went as far as to say that this was also a sweep, which I don't fully agree with, but I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? You did take the high and then you did take the low. So I guess on the lower time frame, for sure, this is like either a 5 or 1 minute, change of character, right? So that's good. And then again, now that we've changed character and we're in a higher time frame POI, we've got our 15-minute change of character. Where are we going to look within this leg for shorts, right? Because obviously we want to try and short it if we're in our POI. Where would you guys look for shorts? There's two areas I'm going to look at. Okay, good. You guys are all looking at the right area. I mean, there's not really much else to pick, right? Just those two wicks, essentially. So let me clear this. So I'm going to tell you why I'm looking at like both, number one. And we'll drop time frames as well in the 5 minutes to see if there's any like flip zones or whatever. But the first thing that I see here, it's not the clearest thing, but if we consider this whole thing as like demand in a sense, right? It's a failed demand, right? Obviously we break through it, right? So you could even say like this was your low that you got taken, right? You change of character. Again, it's kind of subjective, but you can be subjective, I feel like, with changes of character, because you're really just looking for a momentum shift, right? If you're gonna wait too much for like a major shift like this, I mean, we get it on this one. Sometimes what's gonna happen is like price is gonna change character and just run. Like it's not coming back, right? Because you were too loose with it, or you were too tight with it, right? As in like you're looking too much for like a major break, or in this case like a major break of like a low, right? Like I'm not gonna look at this as like a change of character, right? That doesn't make sense, right? But even then, like depending on what price action is doing, I try to be like pretty tight with it and pick like even like minor breaks, right? As I was showing you guys before. Anyways, so look, this is our, I guess we could kind of look at it like this. I'll go on the 5 minute actually for this one. See how we have a demand here? And this, right, pops up and then pushes down. So this is an extreme flip zone for me. So I'll mark out the whole thing. Again, this is on the 5 minute, but we'll look at it on the 15. And the other way that I would look at it is obviously this pause in price action as well, which is probably, again, a 5 minute, right? So it's just a 5 minute wick. So not super clear, but why am I looking at that one? Because we tap into this inside bar, right? Well, we don't really tap into that. We kind of tap really into like these wicks, if anything. So I think the way that I would interpret it is this whole 15 minute, right? Kind of tap into that. But let's look now on the 1 minute and see if we can actually find like some clear flip zones, because again, not like super clean price action. I almost want to hesitate to say that I'd like mark this out because it's just not even that clear. This one's more clear than anything, right? You guys see it. And obviously we break below, right? So based on that, let's see what happens. And where are we in price too? Okay, so this is going to be a New York setup, obviously. Like we're at 6 a.m. here. Price might pull back in and around 7, right? Which is essentially New York Open, right? Or no, sorry, an hour before New York Open, which is sometimes a pretty like high confluence time too, right? So obviously we've tapped into this. What do you guys think is going to happen? Do you guys remember this trade? And do you see how we have a nested flip zone here too on the 1 minute? Where would you guys set your orders, or where would you try to enter market? The top one or the bottom one? Or this, right? Like there's a lot of things to actually pick from on this one. So you tell me what you think. Right, you see this is a flip, this is a flip. Right. There's a flip here, and then you have the extreme, obviously, which like swept liquidity, right? So you got liquidity there. I'm gonna mark out my 1 minute change of character too, by the way. Right, which is also again like overlaps with where like the previous like last pool liquidity was before we popped down, right? So seconds, right? I'll use this as my blue lines. My blue lines are my seconds changes of character, right? So we have one here, right? And we start breaking lows, breaking lows, breaking lows, right? And then this next low, I'm gonna mark out, actually lines up with our 15 minute, one of our 15 minute changes of character here, right? So you guys get that? So some people think it's gonna come up to this one, right? It could definitely, right? Use this as inducement. I don't know, let's see what happens. I think for me, I would probably sit on like the 1 minute, 15 second and like try to enter market on either of these, because I don't know which one's gonna work, honestly. Okay, we test that. Let me move this up a little bit. So 2.2 pip. And then we even get some re-entries in a way. So I'm gonna clear this for a sec. And I'm gonna play price back so I can show you guys how we can actually enter like one of these like continuations, right? Let me pull it back. Let's clear all the drawings and let's start marking out again. We can look for like a 1 minute change of character with this, right? In this case, so say you set your limit here, you cover the high, whatever, you stay in, that's great. But then you start seeing that price takes that high, right? So we have our first like, or pretty much our last like take of the high, right? Let's see if we can get like a minor change of character. We kind of do here, right? This is kind of pushing it though. I wouldn't necessarily like take this. I think for some of you, you'd rather wait for something like this low to break, right? But if instead what happens is we break like this sort of like interior low that's sort of becoming defined by this pullback, I would consider that like a good change of character. It's a nice compromise, right? Because I want you guys to think, right, on the lower, like the 15 seconds time frame, whatever, this is absolutely a change of character, right? And then more so, even though we're in this like major leg, right, we can see this as like our very first like initial like shift in momentum, right? If we wait for this, like price is going to be running out already, right? Kind of as I mentioned before. So you can see that price. I mean, even if we use this as our change of character, obviously it worked, right? Taps into this major wick, right? Why else is this wick nice? Because we swept this liquidity, right? So you could take that. I wouldn't necessarily take that. Again, I want to wait for the low to break. Let's wait for that. Low breaks, right? Right, and then the price pulls back into the previous like range in a sense. And then you can kind of look for, I think for me, the way that I'd honestly try to take this is I'd definitely take this. This would be good. Assuming you stay in, it's good. You'd have like a nice thing to play off of. But then, yeah, whoever marked out this blue, I'd like this zone, probably the best out of all of them. I'm not necessarily like the biggest fan. I mean, you could take this one too, don't get me wrong. Because price is starting to like break, right? There's our break of like almost interior structure, right? I'm saying interior because it's inside of this leg, right? It's pretty much complex structure we're looking at on the 1 minute. Right? So let me zoom into it. Again, on the seconds time frame. So I'll tell you what happened here because I can just see it. Let me clear price again, or clear the drawings. So just hold off from drawing for 1 second. Do you guys see how we essentially have like this demand zone, right? That failed. And then we get pretty much this wick built as a result of it, right? Sorry, I don't know why that's not working. Oops. So we have this. So either, again, you can like look at it like this, right? We obviously tapped into it here, but you can see price tapped into this demand zone a lot more, right? Like this, I would almost like say wasn't much of a tap as much as this was, right? And so if we look at this, again, I don't think I can go on the 15 seconds. It's too far back, unfortunately. But I'm willing to bet that there is some sort of supply that was formed as a result of this flip zone, right? So eventually, like for those of you who are less experienced, you'll be able to read these wicks almost as like, 15-second price action, right? And you'll be able to see that there is essentially an entry here, right? Does that make sense? And you can cover the high too. Like it's not like we have to be like super greedy and go like this 0.8 pip stop loss, right? I'll do a 2 pip stop loss on this. So that way, if price does come up into like this zone, right, which is potentially valid as well, it's that inside bar, and we're still safe, right? What does price do? It doesn't even retest this, right? Which again, I mean, this isn't even really a flip zone either. It doesn't tap into this, right? But it is just a pullback. So price doesn't come into this. It comes into the previous range. I don't know if you guys remember this price action. Again, it's like from a month ago, but I feel like I kind of remember it. Essentially what happens is, yeah, price taps into the previous range, right? Sweeps liquidity and then just continues off, right? So that's pretty much how I would break that down. And again, this is all based off of, in this case, like again, what did I say before? We're counter to pretty much every trend. But why are we looking for shorts? Because we swept liquidity on the 4-hour. We tapped into a 4-hour zone. That 4-hour zone also swept liquidity all the way to the left, right? Let me go and look at this on the 15 minutes so I can see it a little bit more clearly. You guys see how we swept liquidity here? Like that's a confluence for me, the fact that we did that. Even though it's like minor liquidity, we swept, pushed down, we tapped, mitigated into this, right? I'm willing to bet that we also tapped either into this wick or this one. I can't remember. Let me extend this right. Oops. So that's 15 minute, right? And look, we pretty much just like, it looks like we actually swept it, but you guys see how we tapped into pretty much that 15-minute extreme nested in the 4-hour, right? So even though we were against 4-hour swing structure, 15-minute swing structure, 15-minute minor structure, we're against order flow, right? We come into a 4-hour POI that again swept liquidity, had inducement, right? We get our change of character. We see a lot of intent to sell, right? Like this is some pretty like bearish price action. Not only that, but price is also rounding off, right? You guys see this? You see how like initially how impulsive we are, right? And then price starts to sort of wane in momentum. That tells me that essentially like we're approaching our 4-hour zone pretty correctively, right? So again, another confluence. We sweep liquidity as I mentioned before. It's probably like the 4th time that I mentioned that. Again, it's very important. We get our change of character, and then again from like an intraday perspective, right? If we look on the 1 minute, you can see that we're not in the best session timing, to be honest, because it's still like before New York Open, but sometimes you'll notice that like 7 a.m. is like a pretty key time, right? Where we're gonna form an area that we can short off of in this case, or we're gonna form a POI on the lower time frame, or we're gonna get like a huge kick in of momentum, right? It's the same with like 9 a.m. Eastern, which is like an hour after New York Open, and then I find like 8 a.m. has a lot of fake outs. So, but then sometimes there's also like a move too. Like I think today the move was at 8 a.m. or like 8:30, right? So again, just using like session timings is a bit of confidence. But there you go, you get your sell-off, right? So in terms of targets, let's just look at how we would have like managed this too, right? For me, what I'd probably do is just target this, right? Again, we're like counter trend. It is like a really nice zone that we tapped into, don't get me wrong. But I'd look to probably take like the majority of my partials off, or like of my positions off at 80%. Like I'll take 80% volume off of my trades at around like this level here, right? This 15-minute area of demand. And I'll leave the rest to run, right? Does that make sense? Because again, we're counter to every trend pretty much. Like we're still against 15-minute swing structure, even when prices like tap down into that, right? And then whatever, it breaks through, but I'm happy with that, right? You hold the remaining 20%, let it run, like you're still banking on that too, right? But again, because look, we're pretty late in the day. Oh no, we're not even late in the day. What am I saying? We even get a retest. Actually, so we can investigate that too, right? What do you guys think? Should I pop price down to this and see if we like find another entry here? Maybe a continuation?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. So I'll mark out. Let's see. So hold on, I'm just gonna look at our swing structure again here. Make sure. So we're still, here's the other way that you guys can interpret this too, right? This is my 15-minute swing structure. We can look for shorts up here, right? Above relative equilibrium. Like ideally I would want to look for it kind of like above here, so we can still look for continuations, right? Because again, we're reacting off of this super like high confluence zone, right? But the minute we start getting into like this zone here, like the lower half of like 15-minute swing, or even 4-hour, right? It's the same thing. Like 4-hour and 15-minute swing is actually the same in this sense, right? Then I would stop looking for shorts, and really I'd be looking to take like basically all my positions off at this level, right? But let's see. Let's pull price back and let's actually observe kind of what happens here. So I don't think we actually tap into. Okay, no, we do tap into something here, right? So you guys see this wick? Let me delete this tool because it's just kind of annoying. So same thing, right? Again, we're just pulling back. We're sweeping liquidity, and this is all going to be a lot more apparent on the lower time frame. If I go to the 1 minute, you guys can see, right? We built liquidity. It's a flip zone as well, right? And this is still kind of chasing it. There's actually multiple places that you can enter here. So this one's good. This one's at 8:30 as well, right? So you guys see all these entries. I'm not even gonna mark it out. I want you guys to try and tell me where liquidity and the scaling is for these. Let me like position it a little bit better. So I want you guys to mark out 3 things. Number 1, tell me where the failed demand zones are, where we get flips. Number 2, tell me where we build liquidity. And number 3, tell me where you would enter. Where are like the best quality entries, even from up here too. Like in this current leg, right? There's 2 entries. There's 2 more entries that we could have played on this. Okay, so you guys marked out 1. Where's the second one? I'm looking for another one too. Joe, yeah, good. Joe, Simon, Krishna, good. Okay, good. You guys got it. That's what I was looking for. So I don't think we quite tap into it, but we'll do the last, like, we can do the last range here, even, right? I'll show you guys how we can kind of like capture this even if we don't get tagged in, right? So let me clear the price action out and I'll actually mark it out for you guys so we all understand it like really well, right? So in terms of flip zone, we have this, right? And again, look, this is a lower time frame, like change of character 2, right? Not really change of character, but like just we're breaking like minor 1 minute structure, right? So we get a flip zone here, right? Fails there. And then I think if we look on the 5 minute, it's a lot clearer, right? It taps into this. So I don't know if like necessarily, I don't think I would catch this to be honest, but we could look for like major or like continuations right after that happens, right? Right after we tap into that on the 1 minute or like 15 second or whatever, right? And potentially, so say you did take that, whatever, that's good. Take it, hold it. I would only, I guess one thing I need to note before we continue with this, I wouldn't suggest that you guys take these as like your first trade. I would only take it pretty much as a scaling if you've like secured profit and got like break even on these, right? The reason why is because again, like price could come and tap up higher into one of these zones, right? We don't know. In theory, like yeah, it should be protected, and it was in hindsight, we can see that, but I wouldn't really be looking to take this scale in as an individual position, and especially not this one, right? Like, don't chase it. Maybe you could get away with this one because it is pretty high up still. It's like close enough to these, but I wouldn't take this on its own, this next scaling, right? And yeah, it is pretty corrective, but why do I like this? Look, we built liquidity again, right? Built liquidity, we pushed up, swept it, tapped into this previous range, right? And then it looks like, okay, maybe we don't get an entry. I'm just looking here. Like on the 15 second, potentially, we could look for like a flip here, right? But again, because we're so far back in price, I can't really find it. Kind of push up here. So ideally, like we would have wanted price to come tap into this wick maybe, but I don't think we do. So that's fine. So there's no real other entry on that. This one's a pretty difficult one, but it's still interesting to study and observe it, right? Like, do you guys agree? The best price action. I would say the next one as a scaling is a lot better. So let's mark out that one next, right? I'll start with the zone. For this, again, same thing, it doesn't quite come to it, but if we mark out, you know, like this previous range, it's a little bit better, right? Let's look at it on the 5 minute here. Right? It's a 5 minute inside bar. It's pretty obvious where the flip is, right? You guys see here, we ran all the buyers out of the market, right? We had a little bit of like interaction here. Buyers were trying to continue to make this like very minor structure continue up higher, right? We were expecting to break this high, we don't. Instead, we break down. What causes it? This price taps into that. There you go, right? There's your scaling. And even better, right? And this is what I always look for in continuations, liquidity, right? I'm not going to necessarily, like, for me personally, I don't like taking continuations unless we have some sort of like internal range liquidity like this built up to sweep, right? Because I'll find what happens a lot of the time is if you try to just chase price too aggressively, you're gonna get swept. And, like, it happens all the time. It's something that like I'm guilty of doing, or I was guilty of doing like early on when I started trading like supply and demand. I would try to short this. I'd be like, okay, look, we broke structure. I'd try to short this. You get taken out. So what do I do instead? I just think like, what's most likely to get swept and what's sitting above it, right? In the case of shorts, or if we're looking for longs, right? What's sitting below, like these liquidity pools, right? In this case, it's this, right? Same with this one. Build liquidity. You're not going to try and like long off of this, right? Or short off of this, right? Even though you get a very minor like reaction off of it, this is all just liquidity, and then it fulfills this area here, right? Which demand zone? Hold on. This one here? Not sure I understand your question. Are you saying that this could be used as liquidity too? Because it could, but we also have a lot of momentum behind it, right? This could be used as liquidity. We could come tap into this, right? I wouldn't be against like leaving like a limit or like observing price, setting an alert here and observing price if it comes back to this. right? Then at the same time, if we're breaking structure and then breaking structure back, that also tells me like, you know, like whoever's in control of the market in the direction we want to take it, in this case, like for shorts, they don't really have that much control, right? They're like super corrective about it. Or it's possible that, again, like the other way you can look at it is that they're just building liquidity to fulfill a lot of their orders, or like more of their orders higher up, and then they'll push price down really aggressively, right? And so that's kind of what's happening here, right? Like we keep on building liquidity, sweeping, mitigating something, breaking structure, right? Building more liquidity, sweeping that liquidity, mitigating something, and then pushing down, right? So you can kind of tell that's the move. So if we look at like doing like management for this one, again, same thing. I'm gonna look to potentially take partials at all of these levels. Again, remember, price can't move more than, like, price is not gonna move like 10,000 pips in one day either, right? So for me as an intraday trader, I'm gonna look to take like heavy partials at the end of the day, because I don't want to hold through spread hours either, right? Because again, what's gonna happen? Price could pull back like this, right, and take you out, especially for a lot of the scale-ins that we marked up here, right? Just imagine you have like 15 pip spread, right, or whatever it is. That's going to take you out, right? If spread gets this big during spread hours, you're out of this one 100%, potentially out of this one too, right? And then look, price ends up pulling back anyways, right? Wants to collect more orders before it continues down, or it just ranges from here. I can't remember what happens, but yeah. So yeah, does that make sense to everybody? That's a really good example of late July price action. It's really like bad price action, but like, look, we still made sense of it, right? Got our change of character and everything, right? So yeah, I don't know, what do you guys want to do now? Do you want to do another, we can do a little bit more trading view, or we can hop on software FX and just scalp for a little bit? What do you guys want to do? I'll leave, I mean, I'll do this for 20 more minutes if you guys want. 15 minutes, whatever. You want to stay on trading view?
Trading view is better, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes. Depends. Looks like some people want software FX, some people want trading view.
I'm easy anyway.
You know what, we'll do software FX just because I know some of you really like it for the trade management stuff. And I'm kind of sick of trading view, to be honest, right now. I want to be able to look at, I mean, I'm not going to use the 15-second on software FX, but I just like playing around with it, so let's pull it up. You can see the mess that Aaron and I left here yesterday. We were like backtesting during Frankfurt because we were kind of bored. But let's see. This is May of 2020, I think. Is it May? No, it's June 2020. I don't know why. Oh, okay. It just didn't print the next thing here. Okay, so let's look at structure here. I'll let you guys mark it out a little bit. Based on everything I taught you, right? Where do you see structure? Let's mark out 15-minute swing structure here on this 4-hour. I'll maximize it for you guys. Are we bullish or are we bearish? Swing structure. Okay, good. Well, remember what I said, right? We're using candlestick structure for 4 hours, so in order to like define 15-minute swing. So let me do this. Let me clear your drawings for a sec. Where is that tool anyways? There we go. Clear all drawings and move this around a little bit. So the way that I would define 15-minute swing structure again on this, right, is like this, right? Because we're using 4-hour candlestick, right? So we break that high, make this low, that pushes up, make this low, make this high, or sorry, take this high, which defines this, move up, right? Pull back, and we break up again. So that's my 15-minute swing structure. It's from here to here, right? So we're bullish. 4-hour swing structure is also bullish. It's actually very similar to the other price action we were just looking at, right? So it's pretty funny how like price repeats itself. So let's see. I think this is, I don't know, let's see what happens. Like we could see like a reaction probably off of this higher one, right? I've marked out both. I think this is going to get used as inducement. But can you guys see here how we built up liquidity again we're popping off. We built liquidity here. Just use my line tool, right? Built liquidity here. So this tells me like this sweep or trap, bull trap in a sense, is like a really nice area to potentially short off of. So we can look for the same thing, right? So let's play price forward. Let's actually try to scalp this like intraday. That makes sense. One sec. So do that. So 15-minute again is bullish. Let's see what happens. Play price forward. And if you guys want to take any entries, just mark it out and I'll set limits on it. Or I can take market. But right now, price is pretty like overextended. I don't want to like continue to try to long this. I'll close the positions Aaron and I were in so we can kind of start fresh. But let's play price forward a little bit, see what happens. Go to New York session maybe. A little bit more of a pullback. So again, we could say, you guys see how we're kind of getting like a change of character here? Took this high, kind of wicked this low, right? And price is now starting to look like it wants to reverse a little bit, right? And same thing with this, right? Built liquidity, we swept it, right? So potentially we could look for shorts, maybe, but it is counter trend. It's very counter trend. But again, look where we are, just in like 15-minute minor structure, premium discount, right? We should be looking for shorts here. Remember, we're in a 4-hour zone. Remember I marked it up here? Or I told you about it. I marked it up previously, I think. But could potentially look for shorts at these levels. What do you guys think? Would you short here? It's pretty aggressive though. It's not in your plan, I would say don't, but what's the other thing that this did? Right on the 5-minute, we swept liquidity, pushed down. We failed to break this wick low, so this could be a weak high. This could be used as inducement to fulfill potentially something in the extreme, right? So 2 ways to look at it. We're in this zone already. Yeah, let's see. Kind of have equal highs here. Let's see what happens. I'm gonna wait a little bit, see if we sweep the high. And if it does work, whatever, we'll rewind, we'll take it. Because I know some of you marked it out too. Looks like it's building equals. Push price forward a bit. If anything, I want to see a 1-minute change of character here first. We're building equals too much though. There you go. Swept into our higher zone. Again, we're still within session, so this is not like the worst place to short, but I want to wait for my 1-minute change of character. Okay, and we didn't get it, and we stayed out of it, so that's good. That to me is a win, right? Instead of just trying to like short off of something to the left, we waited for a change of character that kept us out of it, right? Now what did we do? We pretty much swept this. We swept, I think, these highs here, right? Almost. Kind of tapped into this larger 4-hour zone, right? The one that I told you was higher, like confluence and probability, because we swept liquidity with it. This wick, 4-hour wick. I don't think it's done pushing up. Let's see. Let me clone this. I think we're still got to push up a little bit higher. We're not enough in that 4-hour zone, right? Okay, building equals again. There's nothing wrong with like sitting on our hands either, right? And being conservative about it. No sense in forcing trades. Yeah, Adrian, we did trading you for the first like hour and 40 minutes, but don't worry, next, I mean, it's been recorded, and yeah, I mean, it's been recorded, so you'll be able to rewatch all of the TradingView work that we did. We covered quite a lot, so a lot of structure stuff, a lot of like breaking structure down, looking at it in different ways. Okay, good, so we got our change of character now, right? We got multiple changes of character here. So let me mark it out on the 15-minute again, right? Our minor 15-minute changes of character. We took the high, right? We took this interior low, which again is enough for me. Because again, I want you guys to consider, even though we're wicking on the 15-minute, if I mark this out on the 5-minute, it's a clear break, right? And even more so on the 1, right? Like look, we're breaking this low. I believe that's this low here that I just marked out, right? And obviously we took out all of this, right? Yeah, we do have equals, but oh, and the other thing is, you know, we're pretty late in session, so maybe we shouldn't try and short this, but let's see. It's probably gonna get taken. Or if this holds, I'll be pretty surprised. I'll take it for whoever marked it out because it looks like he really wanted to short it. But I wouldn't hold my breath on this one, honestly. Where's my orange line? What the hell? Oh. Did the wrong one. We sell it in. Okay, so I'm going to sell off this. This is not bad as a flip, though I'd probably want this higher one, but that's been mitigated, so yeah, this makes sense. So we'll set the limit here, we'll cover the high. That was pretty big, it's pretty volatile. Let's see, do we tap into it? Oh, it didn't tap in. Let me try setting it again. I'll do it right here.
Yeah. Hi, Roberto.
Hey, what's up? How's it going?
Just one question. Why is it okay to take this trade so lower down? Won't you be looking for? Isn't it a very risky trade? You're taking it a little lower down. It should have happened a little above, like the.
Like for taking shorts in a really bullish.
Short. Yeah, the one you just took right now.
Yeah.
I would be very fearful in taking this short.
No, it absolutely is risky. It actually looks like it's going to sweep it, especially because of like where we are in session. But the reason why, hold on, for this I would actually get out of this because of the fact that it built equal highs. I'll leave it on for just to show you guys that this is probably going to get swept. There is like maybe a 10% chance it's going to hold. But in terms of like the reason I'm shorting is because we're in like a higher time frame POI. We've swept higher time frame liquidity. We got our 15-minute change of character, right? Our wick change of character. See how we took this high and then we took this low? And now I'm just looking to basically trade. I mean, ideally, like, because we're so counter trend, I'd really just look to take 5R on this. But again, we are tapping into this higher time frame zone. So there's a chance, just like we did on TradingView, of price basically doing something like this, right? Tapping into like a strong zone like this. Like this is literally the same thing a year later. Isn't that kind of funny? Like look, this is literally like July of 2021, summer 2021. It's the same thing. Look, we swept liquidity, pushed down, we created this zone, built liquidity here, pushed up, tapped into it, and then created a pretty like significant pullback, right? So we're really looking to play a pullback on this because yeah, you're right, it's bullish. Expectational order flow on 4-hour swing is bullish, 15-minute swing. But then again, right, we get our 15-minute change of character, so it's not the worst thing, right? So let's see. Again, I think this is going to get swept. For me, if I had entered this and I saw that it got that close to my stop loss and made equal highs, I'm getting out. But let's see. Could hold too, right? I told you, 10% chance. Oh, there you go. Actually did pretty good. But now we're really late in session and we're like 4 hours from spread hours too. So expect price is just going to range here, right? For me, I would just take 5R on this. So I'm going to exit this. Whoever called that trade, like, good job. It's really good, right? But that's how I would manage that. I would also want to go to bed probably because it's like really late, right? And that's just for me personally. Let's push to the next day. Let's see if we can get another example in before we wrap it up. We've got 5 minutes left. And I want to thank everybody who stayed on. A lot of you guys stayed on this time, which is really cool. You know, sometimes the sessions are long, but I like to cover a lot, so I also do that for like whoever misses it, right? Like they can, I mean, even you guys can watch the video at whatever 1.5 times speed. I try to like cover a lot of topics so we can all learn something, right? So, Elias, I like that that background you have on there. That's pretty funny, man. You have like a chart as your background on your camera. I don't know if you know your camera's on, but it is. So look, we pulled back now to this zone here on the 15-minute, right? This is Asia still, so let's push forward a little bit here. Looks like we actually broke above, and now we're in that 4-hour zone again, right? So we got a little minor pullback. We were able to play the pullback. This wasn't the best trade, honestly. I wouldn't suggest you guys take a trade like that if you're new to it. Try and take with trend trades, right? That being said, because of the fact that price is so bullish, I still want to look for like shorts, right? Like not because it's bullish, but because it's starting to get exhausted, and we're tapping into these supply zones again, right? So It's not to say that I won't take a long here either in session, but I'm gonna look for shorts too. Like I'm happy to play both sides of the market, right? I'm not trying to catch the very tip top of like the short either, right? Because inevitably, again, we're just gonna play a pullback, right? And then once that pullback is over, I can look for longs. If we come pull back into one of these 4-hour zones, right? Whether it's this one, whatever, right? So let's see. Here's Frankfurt open. So I'm just gonna mark out some of the zones that I feel like could potentially hold. So we have this one, right? Swept liquidity here. Broke structure up. That's a pretty nice zone. You guys agree? So potentially for longs. We didn't really get our change of character yet. I want to see, like, this is like, it's too minor, right? I guess we kind of did. Like, this is a pretty weak break of the high, weak break of the low. I want to see more conviction. Ideally, like a close, right? Yeah, there you go. It's still pushing up. That's okay. Again, I want to see this low get broken. That would be my change of character. We are within our, like, 4-hour POI too, right? So let's see. We're still early in the session too. It's not even London Open yet. It's just really rangy. Price forward a little bit. Okay, took the high again. Oops. Oh, we're not breakout traders, so I wouldn't be looking for longs. We didn't really pull back, right? I want to see a retest of something. Right, even this, like, is not the worst zone. Because again, look, swept this liquidity, right? And I'm still not against taking this, because within our, like, swing structure, right, this is still a place that can get tapped into, right? So let's see. If you look at the 5-minute, it looks all pretty efficient though. But I'm basically trying to play this zone, right? Which is nested in the wick of the 50-minute. Essentially this. We're building some liquidity. So this is where I would look for longs, but also if we get our change of character, like I will short as well, right? So we got our change of character. I want to long this. I'm gonna rewind price a bit just to get a better entry on it. So assume you set a limit on that, right? Can you guys see why I did that? All this liquidity that we built up, right? It's either trendline liquidity or we can view it as this, right? Well, I'm gonna let the dog out. 1 second. Just freaking out. Okay, so this should work. What's that?
I have a question.
Sure. What's up?
I can see why you're taking a long there, but should you consider it too high in the premium area?
It is. Yeah, absolutely. It might not work. Let's see. It's still within discount of like this leg, right?
Okay.
But you're right. If we're looking at like swing structure, let's look at swing structure for a second. If I can interpret this correctly, without like switching.
Hi, Robert.
It's still close. Yeah. What's up?
I have one question. I'll just draw my line. Why to have a shot from here? What will the criteria will you take to shot from here? Because it has shifted bearish in the 1 minute.
And it also changed character on the 15-minute. So I am gonna look for shorts as well. Basically, what I'm trying to do is long up to this and then try to short it. So in terms of criteria, I'll go over it once price comes up to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good question because essentially what I'm going to look for is ideally I want to look for a couple things, right? A flip zone, which the one that you marked out actually is, right? I want to see that it like swept liquidity. Ideally, I want it to build liquidity in between, right? And then, yeah, that's pretty much all I'm looking for, to be honest. Like this, I wouldn't really say is a flip zone. There is the unmitigated extreme, but I don't think it's necessarily going to come to it either. Right, remember where we are in session 2, right? We're now like an hour into London, an hour and like 15 minutes into London session, right? So your zone that you marked out here, I think is pretty good. I'll set a limit on that for you. I don't think it's the worst zone. And look, like we even swept like, again, internal range liquidity here, right? So we swept liquidity, pushed down, failed to break initially, but then we broke structure with this wick, right? So that's a good zone to play off of. I'll cover the high. We won't be greedy about it. But again, this long could fail, 100%. There you go, it did, right? We got swept. Price might not even come up to one of these zones, right? Price could even do this and come into this, right? Because this is also a flip zone. We were basically trying, I want you guys to think of it this way too, right? We were basically trying to play this demand, right? So we were one of the buyers that got ran out of this market. We're a product of like this flip zone essentially, right? So yeah, this zone could hold too. Now this is obviously kind of chasing price a little bit. I prefer this higher one, but I'll put it on anyways because you guys want to, somebody marked it out, right? So let's see. It might be used as inducement though. So right, if we take the L, we take the L, right? Looks like it's going to sweep us though. So let's see. Build liquidity, you're tapping into your zone now. There you go, it's not bad. Let's see if it holds. It's pretty, oh no, Steam's updating. It's pretty corrective though. Kind of building liquidity to the up and downside. Let's see if it holds. It's retesting it. For me, I'd probably want to get out of this because it's now breaking structure back into it. So I would try to like get break even on that, but see, look, it ended up sweeping this liquidity, right? And what did it tap into? This. But again, remember we're bullish too, right? So I don't know what's going to happen from here. It's pretty rangy price action. It's pretty difficult to play. It doesn't have, like, I'm trying to see, like, did this tap into anything to the left? Not sure if it did. And I wouldn't necessarily want to long any of this either, right? You don't really want to play like the range too much. So, oh, price actually came into the extreme. Okay, that's interesting. So let's see if that works out, and then let's like study it a little bit, right? This is one of the things that I do in Software FX. Not always, like I do sessions where like I won't rewind, or I'll try not to rewind, so I can practice it. But it looks like everything was just inducement for the extreme. So this is a case of where the extreme actually worked, right? So you guys see how we have basically liquidity at all of these levels, right? We have equal highs, and it's pretty obvious now, right? In hindsight. But let's watch price play through, and then we'll wrap it up. We'll do this as our last trade. All right, so price pops into it, sweeps all of that liquidity. The minute we start breaking these demand zones, then that tells me like, okay, good, we're in a good position, right? And you're right, there's another scale in here. We'll take that too if you want. Whoever marked that out, good call. Okay, price forward. Okay, so you guys see why this is a scale in? I don't know who marked that out in green, but like good call, because look, it's a flip zone, right? And this is all post to the sweep, right? So remember, if we're gonna try and take a continuation after this is all played out, right? We're sweeping liquidity, we're pushing down, we break these demand zones, right? This supply zone is created as a result of this demand zone failing, right? So do that. Oh wait, let's sell right here. Then I gotta go because I think the dog has to go for a pee. So just continue that. There you go, that's a good scale in too. Good job. Again, if we're like gonna manage it, same thing, 20% at 4R if you guys wanna do that. This didn't quite hit 4R yet. Let's see if we stay in. Okay, it did, good. Close that at 4R. And then remember, because we're reacting off of like a pretty major, whoops, I did the wrong one. We're reacting off of a pretty major like 4-hour supply. Could actually see if this like holds into New York. I'd probably look to take maybe partials here, because remember we're still pretty bullish. I don't want to be like too greedy about it. For this, I'm not going to take a lot off, but I'll take like 30% off of each of the remaining positions, and let's see if it continues down. There you go. And it comes, taps into this, right? Remember, this is one of the zones we previously looked at, potentially for longs. So, yeah, I think I better get going though. The dog's freaking out. But But yeah, thanks everybody for
Nah,
for talking
cheers,
so
Rob.
long.
Thanks, pal. Good stuff, mate.
All right, guys. Thanks again
See you on the next
for
one.
showing
Cheers.
up, everyone.
Thanks, bro.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.
Take it easy.